Hi friends, welcome back to another video of me basically deconstructing, as my friend put it, everything I know about the end times and reconstructing it into a way that I find to be most biblically accurate during my children's nap time basically every day. In this video, I'm going to dive deep into the premillennial view and basically everything that encompasses this view. I start off by watching a 2-hour Mike Winger video that basically summarizes all of the viewpoints. I'll leave everything I watched in the description below. And he goes through and breaks down every single eschatological view and defines terms. I wanted to start here just to give my brain the springboard of where to start, what to start looking into. One thing that he just said that I really like is that he holds his view very loosely, and he does not want you to believe in his view just because he does and you trust him. He wants you to do your own research. I really like that, and that's why I watch Mike Winger in general, because he's just very base. He has his views, he has his thoughts, but it's always from a perspective of humility. He doesn't try to infuse his own agenda on the scripture. It's safe to say he's not a post-millennialist. He's definitely not, but that's okay. That's okay. I don't think I would have been able to get through a majority of the studying I've been doing without the brain dump sessions that I've been having with Tyler. I think these have been incredibly helpful to just verbally process with someone. And side note, what an answered prayer. I have always prayed for a man who cares about the Bible enough to be able to go back and forth with me to study, and it's been so awesome to just live in an answered prayer. But anyway, yeah, we had and continue to have so many discussions, debates going back and forward. So yeah. 1 Corinthians 15, when it's talking about the rapture, it sounds like the dead are raised and then the end will come.
Yeah.
Which all sounds like it's happening at the same time, which would negate this resurrection, first resurrection, 1,000-year reign, second resurrection.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and also look at all the parables. There's never any mention of 1,000-year reign. Like when Jesus comes,
there
Jesus comes.
Isn't, but there are some cases that they made. Okay, no. Okay, so this one was a good one. Isaiah 24:19. It says a day of judgment. Like there's going to be a day of judgment. And then the kings are held in a pit for a time. I think 20, when Satan is bound for that 1,000-year reign. And then also 1 Corinthians. So according to pre-mill, historic pre-mill, there's the 3.5 tribulation. Those who are still alive and are saints are caught up in the air with Jesus. That's the rapture. And Christ returns. So you are caught up, and you're changed, and then you come back to earth, and then a 1,000-year reign. Right now, historic pre-mill, I would say, has me. Now, at this point, I think it would be really helpful to go through the points of premillennialism again, just to clarify, so you can see why I started having the problems that I did and started questioning and grappling with certain concepts. First, premillennials believe in this very sequential order of events. There's 2 camps of premillennials that I feel are worth mentioning. There's the dispensational premillennial. I'm going to get these names all butchered, but bear with me. There's the dispensational premillennial. There's going to be a great tribulation during this church age. Like we're in a church age right now, and there's going to be a time of great suffering for anybody that is on earth except the Lord's people. They believe that before this tribulation happens, God's people are going to be raptured, caught up in the air with him, and they are going to escape this tribulation period. And after the tribulation happens, then Jesus is going to come back on earth physically, and those who were once dead, who were believers, are going to raise up. And then there's going to be 1,000-year reign where Jesus is reigning and ruling and basically taking over for 1,000 literal years on this earth. And then there's going to be another resurrection of people who were once dead and now they will be resurrected and judged, right? Then there's the second camp of premillennials who do not believe that we will escape the persecution and the tribulation. They believe that the rapture and the resurrection will not happen until after the tribulation. So the saints will endure through the tribulation, then Jesus will return, and those who were believers will resurrect and reign and rule with him for 1,000 years, and then so on and so forth. So that's the first major thing that I grapple with and I'm looking at in this video. And I feel like that is the most important thing for you to know right now. So as you can probably tell, it's late. I look a hot mess. I'm about to go to bed, kind of. I might do some reading beforehand, but I have been literally just watching YouTube videos in all of the free time that I have, and I feel like I compiled a good healthy amount of notes. I am still looking for a good book to read that can give me a little bit more in-depth information, but in the meantime I'm still just going down the YouTube rabbit hole. Now I have some questions. I have some major questions, but I also am convinced by certain things, and I use the term convinced lightly because clearly there's other views to look at. But my conclusion now is that if I do stay in the premillennial camp, I'm absolutely a historic premillennial person. You can't really read a pre-tribulation rapture from scripture. What else? They have some solid points. Now, I do have some questions, which I'll probably get into tomorrow because my camera's going to die. But yeah, I guess we'll just get into that tomorrow after I do a little bit more digging. So, see you tomorrow. Okay, I feel like I have a lot of notes to go over, but I just want to simplify everything that I'm thinking into 30 seconds or less. So I already mentioned that if I am going to stay in the pre-mill camp, I'm definitely going to be historic pre-mill. Now, one thing I've been meditating on a little bit today is the fact that I am not necessarily looking to be 100% certain about, if one does convince me about its validity and being 100% certain, great. But I am more so wanting to just familiarize myself with the viewpoints to a degree that I can say, I think I align more with this one. The strong points that historic pre-mill has for me is, what are the strong points? First, this is a strong point, but this is also a little bit of I don't know if we should hang everything here. A lot of the early church fathers were historic pre-mill. And so while I don't think that is a reason to believe in something just because people of the olden days used to believe in it, I do think it is worth paying attention to. If this was the general view of the church up until a specific time, why did it change? I do think they have a strong point of how Revelation 19 and 20 is one continuous story, which with amill and post-mill, you kind of have to break that story up in order for it to make sense. Okay, one of the other strong points are the verses that are talking about Christ's millennial reign, right? So you have Isaiah 2, 11, 65, Hosea 2, Zechariah 8. When you're reading these verses, they seem to be talking about a very physical time of peace. It seems like Jesus is physically going to be here on earth. It doesn't seem like a spiritual thing. I feel like, though, the weakest points for pre-mill, historic pre-mill, there are several verses that make it seem like there is only going to be one resurrection. 1 Corinthians 15, Daniel 12. While I'm watching the videos, I'm looking at the scriptures that they're talking about. And as I'm reading some of these, I'm like, why would he even bring this scripture up? Because it actually completely debunks the point he's trying to make. Does he think we're not gonna read it? But not gonna lie, I don't know who I'm making this video to. I don't know anybody else who would find any of this interesting besides my husband and other people out there who like watching videos about eschatology. I have no idea who I'm talking to, but I find such a relief and for me, it's really fun to at least be sharing and talking out loud to someone besides Tyler about what I'm learning, what I'm finding, what I'm leaning towards. I am still in the middle of studying. I basically made a list of all of the relevant Bible verses that I see talked about across all 3 point of views. But I just came across this verse, and I know, if you're even remotely familiar with this debate, you know it. But for me, I just realized it all hinges on this one verse, all of it. And that's Matthew 24, verse 34. Jesus basically, he tells of the end times, right? He tells of all of this tribulation that's going to come. And then he says, "Truly I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all these things have taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away." I think it all hinges on whatever that means. The people that he was talking to, their generation, will not pass away until everything that he mentioned. My thing is, though, he says, "And this good news of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." And then the good news is going to go out, and then the end will come. But then he says, "This generation will not pass away until all these things have taken place." So does that include the good news? Questions I have for Post and All Mills. Honestly, I'm a little too excited right now. You can't tell, but I'm a little excited because I don't know. I'm reading Matthew 25, and it's seeming to imply that when Jesus comes back, there's going to be a separating from the sheep and the goats, and he's not implying him coming back 2 times. Because the historic premillennial position is that there's going to be a tribulation, and then Jesus is going to basically come back, the saints are going to be raised, and there's going to be a 1,000-year reign. And then there's going to be another resurrection where the dead are raised and judged. Now, when you read Matthew 25, it literally says, when the Son of Man comes back in all his glory, all the nations will be gathered, and he will separate one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats, and he will put the sheep at his right hand and the goats at the left. So, because if Jesus is coming to earth and establishes a kingdom for a literal 1,000 years, that would be his second coming. I just want to know how the pre-mill interprets this verse. To clarify, the reason why these verses are so troubling to me is because they imply or seem to imply that when Jesus comes back, it's a finality. It's not this first resurrection, 1,000 years, and then a second resurrection and the dead are judged. These verses seem to imply that at his coming, his second coming, it is done, it is finished, death is destroyed, defeated, and all the dead are judged. He separates the sheep from the goats, etc. So you can see why this has been really confusing for me from a pre-mill point of view. Okay, we're back. Another day, another study sesh. I just want to say that in reading the gospel, in reading what Jesus has explicitly said, it's kind of hard to gather a pre-mill view. I'll just say that. Because there are so many verses that, like, he's talking to the Jewish people and saying, this is going to happen to you and your people, right? The post-mill view and all-millennial view is just most consistent with what Jesus is saying and then what has happened throughout history. I'm not coming to any conclusions yet because there's definitely so much more to look at. But from reading the Gospels, specifically like Matthew 13, Matthew 24 through 25, Luke 17, Luke 21, like, I don't know any other way around these verses to say that this is going to happen in the future, which it very well could be. However, when he says, then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Now, when these things begin to take place, stand up and raise your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. So it seems like there's going to be destruction, and then, actually, that verse actually confuses me. I will say, though, that what confuses me is verses like Luke 21:27, that it basically details all of this destruction that's going to happen. And then it says, then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Now when these things begin to take place, stand up and raise your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. So if all of these already happened, is the sign of the Son of Man basically, according to post-mill or all-mill, like, yeah, what would that be attributed to? That's my question. Because to me, it sounds like it's going to be destruction, and then Jesus comes and redeems his people, which is more aligned with a pre-mill view of like tribulation, and then Jesus comes back and starts the kingdom. But if all of this already happened 70 AD, then what was the sign? What was the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory? And how was the redemption near to them if we're still, like, clearly we're not fully redeemed yet. So, I mean, we're fully redeemed, but we're not in heaven yet. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm not gonna lie, I am currently feeling like maybe I'm not smart enough for this, because there's just so many pieces. But just like when you're doing a jigsaw puzzle and you pour out all the pieces on the table, especially if it's like 1,000 pieces and over and they're so small, you're like, there's absolutely no way I can do this. And even in the middle of you doing it, like maybe the puzzle is halfway done, you're like, yeah, there's no way. But with jigsaw puzzles, you start with the easy, you start with the ends, you just take it piece by piece, little by little. So that's what I'm trying to do. But man, there's a lot. There's a lot. As you can see, this is where things started to get really confusing for me, and the mental fatigue of trying to understand all of this really started to take a toll. But alas, I continued on putting it together piece by little piece, just trying to form this view of the end times. And by the end of this video, this is where I have ended up. I don't think I can faithfully be a premillennial. I know I started off by saying that if I were to remain a premillennial, I would be a historic pre-mill, largely because it offered a more sober view of what I once believed. However, the more I read, the more I studied, the more I just could not remain in this camp wholeheartedly the way that I was before. And I'm going to give you a few reasons why. First of all, the reason I just quit the dispensational premillennial view like right off the bat is because the whole pre-tribulation rapture is just not in scripture, and I would love to sit down with someone who does believe this and see. I didn't have the time to really look too far into it because I was just reading scripture. And so I'm just gonna read a few verses. There are so many, but just a few that completely negate, in my eyes, and in a lot of commentaries that I read, a pre-tribulation rapture. So Matthew 24, verse 29 through 31. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened. Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man, and he will send out his angels, and they will gather his elect. Second one, 1 Thessalonians 4, 16 through 17. For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a loud command, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet call of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. After that, we who are still alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so we will be with the Lord forever. The list goes on and on and on, talking about at the last trumpet. At the last trumpet that's the end. That's the end of everything. So there's so many verses that are like this that I was just like, no, that doesn't make sense. The reason why I was not convinced by a historic premill view is because when Jesus is talking about the tribulation that is to come, he is saying all of these things, and then he says this generation will not pass away until all of these things take place. What does that mean? And the answers that the all-millennial view and the post-millennial view offer for what this text means simplified it so much, but I'll get into that in the next video. I'll let Past Alyssia close this one out. Okay, I am gonna end this video here. A little confused, but a little more enlightened. And I'll fill you in on what I'm thinking in the next video. In the next video, I'm going to dive into the amillennial perspective, which is the one I am a little more curious about. But if you have any comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, please leave them in the comments. I would love to find out who is along with me on this journey, and what are you thinking? What do you think about the end times? And yeah, I would love to find my people who like to talk about this stuff. So yeah, let me know. All right, I'll see you next week.